Do you think we're in a crisis of purpose right now?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that we are. I mean, it's embarrassing that I have a career, right? Um, there should be no demand for my work. um, yeah, I think that in general, I think people would admit it. I think that who can say whether that it's the first time it's ever happened? But I think people are more open to say that they either want it or are missing it. So, but I think we've definitely seen the workplace change over the past few decades. We've definitely seen the decline in church membership over the past few decades. We've definitely seen, increased rates of loneliness and anxiety and depression. And I think there's a lot of, and the significant rise of sort of retreats and purpose, events and things like that. So
Men's groups.
So I think I think it's safe to say yes.
Yeah. What are the areas that have fallen away? You mentioned work, you mentioned church, community.
Yeah.
These are things that perhaps 50 years ago, 100 years ago would have been more prevalent.
Well, what's interesting is what we've seen in the world, like people used to get their sense of purpose from church, or things like that. We had bowling leagues. And extracurricular activities where people would have their friends group. You socialized with your neighbors, and work was a place you went to make a living. It wasn't supposed to be this end-all be-all of everything. And as those things fell away, we started to put more and more pressure on the workplace to provide those things. So now we're looking for our work to provide our sense of purpose, to provide our sense of community, to provide our social life. And now we're also saying that work should be the place that agrees with my politics. That never used to happen. And so, for better or for worse, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on the workplace and leaders in the workplace to be able to successfully offer all of those things. And people are quitting their jobs because they're not getting those things. And it never used to be a thing. I think also we're doing the same thing in our relationships. There's a correlation, which is, you had your friends, you had your spouse or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and you didn't expect your partner, your romantic partner, to be able to provide everything, be my rock, be my best friend, be my lover, be, my stability, be the person. And yet now we put overwhelming amounts of pressure on one person to be everything, the same way we're putting overwhelming amounts of pressure on our workplaces to be everything. We're setting both up to fail, by the way, which I think leaves us in a malaise and loss. So I think all of these weird concoctions are contributing to that sense of lost or looking.
Interesting that it's not necessarily that we're applying more pressure just to work and relationships because of some pivot in culture, but that the previous other contributors have fallen away.
Yeah.
And when there's less of a hedged market in that regard, you've got all of your money into a couple of stocks, one of the stocks being work and another one of the stocks being your partner.
Yeah.
And that's an amount of pressure that is going to be very difficult for them to fulfill. And also not necessarily what they were entirely designed to fulfill.
Yeah. It's one person can't be everything. Otherwise we'd have no need for friends. One person can't be everything. One place can't be everything. Now, having said that, we can't argue against it. It's the way of the world. We can talk about how we got here. That might be a little bit useful, kind of, maybe not. Technology definitely played a role. For me to get entertainment, there wasn't that much TV. I had to leave the house. Now all of our entertainment is right at our fingertips on television or on our phones. I mean, there's no reason to leave the house. We're now at a point where you don't even have to go to the movies anymore because you can just wait a week or zero and start streaming whatever you want to watch. So there's no reason to leave the house.
How do you come to think about people deliberately cultivating meaning in their life? Is this a process that you can go through? Is this is it emergent, or is it something that you can decide to try and achieve, to cultivate?
No. You can definitely seek it out. I mean, you can definitely seek it out. People find purpose many different ways. Some will stumble upon it. There'll be a crisis. There'll be a realization. They'll survive something. You very often hear people who survive drug addiction or alcoholism or some sort of battle, then devote their lives to helping other people overcome the thing that they overcame. That crisis gave them a sense of purpose. People have families, and it gives them a renewed sense of purpose to take care of other human beings. Leadership, when you find yourself responsible for the lives of others, people find purpose in that too. Those are all. I would be hesitant to tell people to wait for something like that because it may never happen, right? Or you may not learn the lesson if something does happen. And so the process of uncovering purpose is an objective process. Anyone can go through it. My discovering of my purpose came through crisis. I lost my passion for my work. I owned a small business, and I didn't want to go to work anymore. I completely fell out of love. And I was very, very, very embarrassed because superficially everything looked good. I mean, I own my own business. I had good clients like, oh, Simon doesn't want to go to work, And so I kept it to myself, which is a stupid thing to do. Turns out when you're in a dark place and you don't tell anybody about it, it gets darker. That's sort of how it goes. And it wasn't until a friend of mine confronted me and said, there's something wrong and you are not telling me. And I came clean, and it lifted a huge weight off my shoulders because now I did not feel alone in my pursuit of being lost. Because when you're lost and you keep it to yourself, you stay lost. And this is we're human animals. Like, we need each other, right? And so when you're lost and you simply tell somebody, I'm lost, and they're willing to just hold your hand and make you not feel alone, even though the journey is still your own, the energy you have, the focus you have, the clarity you get, exponentially increases. And that's what happened to me. And I now had the energy to find the problem and rediscover purpose. I made this discovery of this thing called the why. More important than finding my own, I figured out how to help others find theirs. I started helping my friends. Their friends asked me to help their friends. And before you knew it, people asking me to talk about it. And then I got an opportunity to write about it. So there is a process to find your why, and I'm proud to be a part of that to help people find it. It's completely changed my life. So,
does this mean that going through a catastrophe or a low point is a gift in retrospect, in a bizarre way?
Everybody I've ever talked to who's learned a significant lesson from catastrophe or low points, we all are secretly grateful. Like, nobody wants to go through it again. Like, I hope I never go through anything like that again. It was awful, but I'm glad it happened.